Many people want to know what is happening right now in Iran. Yesterday, we had a huge escalation on the part of the United States. They attacked many energy facilities in Iran together with nuclear power plants and the water, the heavy water in the city of Arak. What is happening, Professor Man? What has happened yesterday?
Well, you're right. They struck key infrastructure, and the Iranians have already warned beforehand that if they carry out such strikes, the retaliation will be very severe. And they have stated that they will now strike key infrastructure in occupied Palestine, as well as the key infrastructure in the five regimes in the Persian Gulf, simply because these five regimes are part of the war. They, without them, the United States cannot wage this war. Without their airspace, without their land, without the bases, without access to their ports, this war is impossible. And they're even funding this war. These three countries are the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. They are providing funding. So, because of this situation, the Iranians feel that when they speak about their neutrality, they're insulting the intelligence of the Iranian people. So the destruction of key infrastructure and key industrial assets in these countries have begun, and it will continue until what the Iranians have declared beforehand that will be carried out is carried out. And we have to remember this has already happened before, as you know. The Iranians warned the American regime that if they strike our key infrastructure, there'll be heavy retaliation. And the Israeli regime did that. They struck the South Pars gas field, and then Iran destroyed big parts of Qatar's gas installations, its gas installation, the LNG production, as well as key assets in the Emirates and in Saudi Arabia. So Iran, when it makes these threats, it's very serious. If this continues, Iran will continue. And ultimately, if we go down this road, if the Israelis push, that will lead to the complete destruction of oil and gas assets across the Persian Gulf. And then even if there is some sort of agreement down the road, there will be no gas and no oil and no tankers. So basically what the Israeli regime is doing is that it is sacrificing the entire world, the entire global economy, and Trump, being the obedient person that he is, even though we are told that he's seeking an off-ramp, it seems that he simply does not have the authority. He does not have the clout to end this. He is obedient to the Zionists and to the regime in Tel Aviv.
He said 48 hours ultimatum, then 5 days, then 10 days, and 10 days would be the April 6th, but they attack Iranian, infrastructure, energy, facilities in Iran. While Donald Trump said we're not going to attack these sort of facilities because he considered them as important. But right now they're doing this. They're doing what they said that they're not going to do. What is your understanding? Because it's so much important. What is the strategy on the part of Iranians right now, and how Iran would respond to the escalation that the United States is making right now?
Well, Iran has already said, and as I pointed out, it is going to respond, and severely. It's going to hit harder. Whatever they hit in Iran, Iran is going to hit twofold, threefold, fourfold. Probably not twofold, but more. So that aside, this just shows, Nima, that Iran cannot have a ceasefire with the United States. This is just another indication of that. We had an agreement with the United States, the nuclear deal in 2015, with the P5+1. The US was a part of it. It wasn't a great deal for Iran. It was a great deal for the US. Trump tore up the deal. And then even after that, and during his second presidency, we were negotiating with Trump, and it became clear 9 months ago that he was conspiring against us during those negotiations. And again, before this war, it was the same. Right now, he's saying that he's not going to attack key infrastructure, but they are. So that shows that Trump's signature, his promises, mean absolutely nothing. They're worthless. His words are worth nothing. And therefore, in order for this war to end, Iran is saying that the conditions on the ground must change. The conditions must be changed in a way in which in future Iran is not attacked again. We can't have a ceasefire where the American regime and the Israeli regime go back to the drawing board, regroup, rearm, and strike again 6 months from now, or a year from now, or in a year and a half from now, or 2 years from now. That's not acceptable. So the 5 Iranian demands are very reasonable, and Iran is not going to let go of any of them. We will demand reparations, and we will get those reparations. These Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, they are utterly complicit. They have murdered many Iranians, and they will have to pay for it. Every single bit of money that they owe to Iran, Iran will take from them. No doubt about that. And in addition to that, Iran's sovereignty has to be respected, and Iran's rights as a sovereign country have to be respected, and Iran's allies across the region, their security has to be respected as well. So a ceasefire is just out of the question. No one in Iran will accept a ceasefire because we know that if we accept a ceasefire, they will wage war again.
How do you see, Professor Marandi, the way that Saudi Arabia, because Fox News just announced that Saudi Arabia will join the fight. They're trying to make something up in the United States, but after all, I'm talking about the Arab states in the Persian Gulf, were they part of the war so far, and how deep they were?
Well, if they join the war, they will be immediately destroyed. Remember, none of these countries have anything but energy supplies. The foundation of the existence of these countries is based upon oil and natural gas. And almost all of their key assets are alongside the Persian Gulf. They can all be easily destroyed. If they enter the war directly, then everything is, as they say, fair game. Everything will be destroyed. And those regimes will collapse. I don't think they have any real question about that. If the Saudi regime, and I'm sure you saw how Trump humiliated Mohammed bin Salman just hours ago, saying that he has to kiss him, in the backside. If they have any dignity and honor, they would distance themselves from the United States. If they had any dignity and honor, they would distance themselves from the Greater Israel Project, because after all, Saudi territory is something that the Israeli regime wants, and the U.S. ambassador to occupied Palestine has admitted that and said that the United States would support it. They would have no problem with it. So instead of moving closer to Trump, who speaks about their leader in such a humiliating way, all they have to do is say the Americans must leave our territory. They cannot use our airspace, and they cannot use our bases, and we can only have an ordinary relationship like other countries. If that happens, then much of the problem will have been solved immediately. But they don't have that capability. These are proxy regimes of the United States. That's how they stay in power, through obedience to the United States.
Finally, we've seen Yemen joining the fight. And what is, in your opinion, important about Yemen joining the fight? And are we going to see the Bab al-Mandab, the Red Sea, being somehow managed as Iran is managing the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, I think ultimately that's the direction we're moving in. Remember, the axis of resistance has not escalated. We did not start this war. Iran did not start this war. And we are only escalating in response to escalation. But when they escalate, Iran hits much harder, as we saw on the strike of Qatar's gas installations and Saudi and Emirati oil and gas installations. But Yemen is in and now entering, but even their entrance has stages. It could get very bad. The ground forces of Yemen are enormous. They can easily overrun significant parts of Saudi Arabia, just like the Iraqi resistance can easily take Kuwait and liberate northern Iraq. So, and they can go further than Kuwait. They can go beyond Kuwait into Saudi Arabia to the south. The United States is pushing for an escalation which is only going to end very badly for the United States and which is going to end badly for the world. What we're seeing now is bad enough. And Israel doesn't care about the world. The Israeli regime does not care about India's economy or Germany's economy or Argentina's economy or the Nigerian economy. They don't care about anyone. So they're more than willing to sacrifice the interests of the United States and the rest of the world for their own sake. And that is exactly why Trump is working against the interests of his own people and against the interests of the international community, because he is obedient to Israel. Now, why is that the case? Is it because they have footage of him with little girls? Is it because of the people who've surrounded him? Is it because of the lobby and how much money they've given to him and how much, or is it a combination of different things? Who knows? But at the end of the day, it is clear that the United States is stuck. It is only going to get worse. If they launch an attack tonight on Iran, a land attack, which is quite possible, the Iranian response will be massive. It will fail ultimately. They will have to leave ultimately. They will be stuck in a quagmire. But if they do attack, it's only going to make it worse. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and faster than what we have now. Iran has no option but to pursue the course that it is pursuing, because Iran is the victim. Iran is defending itself. And the countries in the Persian Gulf that export oil and gas, they're all complicit. The Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, they're all a part of this war. So Iran has no option but to treat them, the regime in Washington and the regime in Tel Aviv, in the way in which it is. Otherwise, they will try to undermine Iran's sovereignty, and the very existence of Iran is being targeted by the Zionists.
I think one of the main messages, key points, was mentioned by the head of the Iranian parliament, Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf. He said that we have to put an end to this cycle of war, ceasefire, war. How is that going to be achievable? Is that going to, because 2 points in those 15 points on the part of the United States, which were presented to the Iranian side, were one of them is to limit Iranian ballistic missile program. The other one is, talking about the Iranian nuclear program. Is there anything in those points that could be achievable in this, considering these 2 points?
No, not at all. Nothing. Nima, there are 2 things that the Americans simply cannot comprehend. It's beyond their mental capabilities. One is that the Islamic Republic of Iran is fiercely independent, based on the values of the revolution, based on its civilizational heritage, based upon its religious ideology, and in particular, the Shia notion of resistance and resilience and struggle against the oppressor and support of the oppressed. This is something that makes Iran very strong and very capable of protecting itself and standing up to a power much greater, meaning the United States and the collective West and its regional proxies. The second is that because of that independence, Iran has made decisions in Tehran. It does not buy F-35s and other weapons of the United States because the United States demands them to do so. It went and developed its own indigenous capabilities. It went and built missile cities and drone cities and the factories to develop them and enhance Iranian technological abilities. It enhanced Iran's universities. That's why for the last couple of days, the United States and the Israeli regime have begun bombing Iranian university campuses in Tehran, in Isfahan, and will probably continue. But they cannot take away knowledge. Iranians are educated, they're smart, they will rebuild better than before. But Iran is independent. No other country in this region is anything like Iran. So you have that resilience and you have that sense of independence. And Iran has developed those capabilities. We have those. They said that this war will end in 2 days. Why? Because they underestimated Iran's resilience. Then after 3 or 4 days, they said Iran is beginning to run out of missiles and drones because they underestimated Iran's capabilities. And that is going to lead to their ultimate defeat in this war. If Trump is smart enough to find an off-ramp and overcome Zionist obstacles, the damage will be less. The more he doubles down, the damage will be more and it will happen much more quickly. So the choice lies in Washington. But Washington does not care about the interests of the United States. It cares about the interests of the Israeli regime. But we'll have to see as the pressure builds up across the world, because everyone is blaming the Israeli regime. Everyone knows that they're behind it. They're blaming Washington because everyone knows they're behind it. So both in the United States and across the world, as the pressure builds, as the global economy suffers, we'll have to see if the arrogance of Zionism will be forced to bring an end to this aggression, or whether it will double down and make the catastrophe much worse than what it already is.
I think part of the equation is what is happening in Israel, and it seems that in Israel, the head of IDF said the army is collapsing from within. They have a lot of problems in that front with Lebanon, and we know that Hezbollah has shown a big, sort of comeback when you look at what Hezbollah is doing right now. They're hitting the central part of Israel, the southern part of Israel. They're fighting on the battleground, destroying Israeli, tanks. And how do you see the combination of what Hezbollah is doing? And right now we have the Hezbollah in Iraq and Houthis, Yemenis joining the fight.
Nima, in the West, they always, whenever these journalists speak with me, I know that like these mainstream journalists or these think tankers, they contact me and ask me questions and I explain to them, sometimes on their television programs or radio programs. And they always want to think that like this is propaganda. For years, we've been saying, and the evidence is there on your show elsewhere, that if they attack Iran, they will fail and they will cause a global energy crisis, exactly as I've been saying for years, and exactly as other people on your show have been saying. Every time they would say to me that Hezbollah has been diminished, I would always tell them Hezbollah is not diminished. It is a very powerful force and it is rearming and preparing itself for the future. It has learned a lot about Israeli technology. The Israelis were preparing for 18 years for this war, and Hezbollah does not control Lebanon. Lebanon is full of enemies of Hezbollah. And of course, Al-Qaeda, US tool, is now in Syria. Despite that, they prepared themselves and exactly what we knew would happen happened. They are performing extraordinarily well. Yemen, which defeated the United States in another war a year ago, they are much more prepared today for war than even back then. And the resistance in Iraq is just beginning. It's just beginning. The escalation has not gone up the escalation, very much up the escalation ladder yet. So the West always underestimates. They always believe their propaganda, just like their propaganda about Iran. They always say Iran is weak, Iran is unpopular. The regime, when you always hear the regime, they love calling Iran a regime. They can keep doing that. We're fine with it. They keep saying it's unpopular. They believe their own propaganda, that the regime kills tens of thousands of its people on the streets and that sort of nonsense. They're the ones to blame because they're the ones who created these terrorist groups and these armed rebellions leading to the murder of innocent people. But they try to blame the Iran. Their media repeats what they say because the media is not open, it's not free. They belong to the Epstein class, just like the regimes belong to them. But the problem is that they believe their own propaganda. And so they underestimate. They believe their propaganda that Hezbollah is finished. They believe their propaganda that Iraq, we're in control. The Iraqis hate Iran. And they believe their propaganda about Yemen. And as a result, they only make things worse for themselves because they develop policies based upon their own propaganda, and then they hit a brick wall. And then they wonder why it didn't work. They don't think that their own estimations, their own analyses was deeply flawed. That's why when they develop new policies, it's still based upon the propaganda model, the propaganda that they've been producing through their propaganda models. So this is where we are. Hezbollah has been pounding the Israeli regime. And remember, Hezbollah is the big hero of the last 2.5 years. They they continue to make sacrifices. Just today, the Israeli regime has been murdering journalists, targeting journalists. They've been murdering medics, and of course, the West doesn't care because they're controlled by the Epstein class, Western media. They murder women and children. They bomb houses, and Western media calls these Hezbollah strongholds, so that people wouldn't recognize that these are just apartment blocks that they're bombing and destroying. Hezbollah has made all these sacrifices because it wanted to stop the Israeli regime from slaughtering the kids in Gaza. The sacrifices of Hezbollah and the resistance were for the children of Gaza. History will remember Hezbollah as the most humane and ready to sacrifice force on this planet. And of course, the same is true with Ansar Allah in Yemen. The same is true with the resistance in Iraq, and the same is true with the Iranian people. The resilience of the Iranian people is extraordinary. Young teenagers, girls, boys, standing and on the streets as missiles are fired at them, at their demonstrations by this Epstein coalition, but they don't run away. They don't stampede. They stand their ground. They're extraordinary. But Hezbollah, because of its the fact that it has a border with occupied Palestine, has come under the most vicious of all attacks, and they will emerge victorious. And the region and the world will have to learn about what Hezbollah is. Why are they so resilient? Why are they so effective in standing up against Western domination, Western imperialism, and the brutality of Zionism?